Hello, Western Standard viewers. My name's Shaun Polczer, and I'm the business and energy reporter for here at the Western Standard. And you're with us on our weekly Business Standard business segment. So, which is kind of how it got its name. So today we've got a pretty good show for you. We're talking with Jeff Callaway about shallow rights reversion. So, shallow rights reversion is one of those things that everybody has an interest in, especially here in Alberta, but nobody's really interested in because it plays into the orphan wells and some of this mature well strategy that's being pitched by the Alberta government of Danielle Smith. So they put out a position paper here a couple of weeks back, and this kind of seems to be a little bit of an addendum to it. So we're going to talk with Jeff. Jeff, he's chairman of the Western Standard here, but he also has a small little oil company that he's doing some stuff. And I like to drop in once in a while and just look in on his maps, and we can geek out and talk oil. And so that's what we're going to do: talk a little bit of shop and try to put it down onto a level that maybe most people can understand. And then once again, I've also got Nick Samain, who's head of DMG events. So last week, well, I guess it was a week before, we were talking from the Edmonton Hydrogen Conference, but I think what he really wants to talk about is some of the things that we're doing with the energy show that's coming up here in June. It's kind of the stampede of oil and gas, and Western Standard is going to be part of it. We've come up with some arrangements for some things that we are going to do with DMG. So we're going to talk a little bit about some things in partnership of what to look forward to from the show. I'm going to ask him the question that I asked last year. He doesn't know this yet, but it's, what about the rodeo, Nick? What about the rodeo? Because that's the one thing that everybody seems to really like. But just from what I've seen on the show, it looks like a stacked program with lots of good speakers, lots of good outdoor events. They're going to have bands and beers and chuck wagons and the whole nine yards. So it's going to be a really good thing. And while we're at it here, we'll just take a minute to ask you all to sign up and maybe take out a membership here at the Western Standard. I am a veteran or a victim of mainstream media, but anyway, I've seemed to find a home here at the Western Standard. We're really proud of what we do, independent media, and I've been able to build up an audience of people who seem to care about some of these business stories and some of the energy stuff that I like to do. So I'm glad you're here, and if you want to show some support, then I think it's incumbent on you to take out a membership and be part of the team. And with that, we'll just like to head into some of our talk, and hope you stay with us. Thanks. So we're here with Jeff Callaway, President and CEO of Energize Natural Resources. Jeff also happens to be chairman of the board here at Western Standard, and he's in the oil and gas industry, so we kind of talk the same language. So I like to have him in once in a while just so that we can talk about a few things. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah. So I guess the big news is energy and environment ministers. You're saying you're not too familiar with them.
No, and it's honestly head down in the energy business, right? Trying to make a go of it. So especially with these gas prices and what
yeah, I suppose
it's in oil prices. So
right.
I think it's a little bit more encouraging to have someone that at least that appears to have some heft in the portfolio and experience. I mean, previous board director of MEG. Yep. And with energy. But of course, the new environment minister, a protege of Guilbeault,
plastic straws
is her
same old.
So we'll have to see who actually has the sway there, who has the power.
Right.
And I mean, obviously in Western Canada and Alberta in particular, we desperately need to find more egress to international markets.
Yeah, that's another word. That's a fancy word for pipeline, folks.
Yep, it is.
I appreciated your comment, though. It's like you guys are more worried about gas prices, more worried about oil prices. You know what I mean? Like it's nose to the ground.
It is. I mean, I was talking to some marketers this morning, and just talking about the outlook of gas prices, and LNG Canada is coming up. Hopefully, there's no delays in that, because that can take about 500 to 700 million cubic feet a day out of the AECO basin.
Yep.
And then of course there's Silesum's coming and Cedar. And of course, it makes lots of headlines about data centers, but That's
Right.
pretty small in the big scheme of things. And
Well, it was kind of funny because we were at a function and Mike Rose, Tourmaline was there, and aside, gas. Our favorite gas companies are actually holding up on the stocks. They're actually not doing that bad over the last month or so.
I think it was also a function. There's some enthusiasm about LNG Canada. A lot of takeaways happening imminently there, but there was a lot of real concern about the state of the gas markets this summer.
Sure.
And so it's a little bit stronger than what it was anticipated to be, which is good, but it's still, I sometimes tell the story. It's like, well, you're not homeless on the street. At least you're in the shelter now. So
fair enough. Yeah. No, we were talking about data centers, and Mike was saying there's a lot of variability there. Like you were saying, it could be as high as 9 BCF a day or North America, which is still really only about 10% of gas, or it could be as low as like 2 or 3. Yeah. Which is a rounding error, like a couple good sized wells, right?
Yeah. Well, for what Tourmaline and ARC can bring on and the potential that we've got there. So, I mean, what we should really see is some more power demand coming, and especially when we're reading the news these days about, lower snowpack in BC and that now, and they're having to import power from the US. I mean, hey guys, we got a lot of potential electricity generation if we turn on some natural gas plants. That's nice and stable.
If we don't go no bid in the summer.
Yeah.
But that's actually not what we're really here to talk about. What we're really here to talk about is shallow rights reversion. So I'm looking at the information letter here that came from the Alberta government. It took effect here on May 1st. So you're kind of a little more involved in that game.
Yeah, so obviously we saw deep rights reversion in the past.
The 80s.
Way back. Yeah. And then shallow rights reversion was sort of proposed, but then put on hold. And now the government's actually coming forward with that. So I'm not going to profess to be subject matter expert here, but from a practical standpoint, there's virtually every producer in the province, I would say, has wells that for a very simplistic, I guess, kind of explanation, you drill down, you've got a target formation, and then you produce from that formation. You do what's called perforating your well. So it's a steel pipe, you puncture some holes in it, and then the oil and gas flows into that well from that depth.
It used to be nitroglycerin. Now it's sand, right?
Yeah,
multi-stage frac. But that multi-zone thing that you were talking about, that was one of the advantages of actually drilling in Alberta, because you could commingle all these zones, and
that's right.
You had bailout targets if your first one didn't work out.
And the bailout targets, that is very true. If you're drilling a well, you spend $1 million, $2 million, whatever the number is on a vertical well, and then you get down to that zone. If it's not productive, and you find water or nothing, fair.
Applesauce.
Apples, you might hope for applesauce versus anything else, given the price of food these days. Anyway,
food security.
But then you could go up into a different zone, and you could test that one, and so on and so forth. So in Alberta, we've got thousands of really shallow gas wells, coal bed methane wells, and so they're already very shallow. So there's not really any upside on those ones to go uphole.
Right.
But for much of the province, which is the western half of the province, for lack of the big generality,
deep basin,
you start deep, and then you eventually keep going uphole and producing. The practical matter of that is you produce everything from the bottom formation, and then you go up, and then you perforate another zone, you produce that, and so on and so forth. So the practical reality of it is you can end up extending the life of a well, and you get more production out of that well over time.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily go and drill that well for that shallower zone to start with. So if it says in the bulletin there that you've got 3 years to prove the the upper hole potential, which effectively means you have to go and perforate and test those upper zones, but that can end up impacting your lower zone productivity, and now you're losing.
Right. At a point in time, like you said, when gas prices are uncertain, they're kind of lower. So now you got to go spend a whole bunch of money to prove up your upper zones so that you hang on to those rights, because you don't get them top to bottom anymore, right?
Yeah, right. So, depending on how you bid, and there's lots of different.
So what do you think is going to happen here? Like, would it be fair to call this a form of expropriation?
Yeah, absolutely.
like they're taking away your private property.
Yeah, they are. And to me, it doesn't make a it's a lease. It's a lease from the government, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, just frankly, because, we're so concerned with abandoning wells and the abandonment liability of wells that if companies aren't doing that testing of the uphole rights within that time frame, then they lose the rights, and then you're bringing forward the abandonment obligations on the industry, which places another cost on the industry.
Right.
And it's done for the province because the province makes royalties off of those extending the well of those lives. And it's not just royalties, but then it's service providers and service rigs and landowner payments and
like
all of those things
that are
involved in the production of a well. Yeah.
Right.
And so if you take away those upper hole rights, the province is losing that revenue and all the indirect benefits. And then the well gets capped, but it's not economic enough for a new well to be drilled to test those upper zones.
Well, and I was just going to say, like, how many people would go down in there and then drill these really shallow wells, right? Like, what are you talking, less than 2,000 meters?
Yeah, absolutely, less than 2,000 meters.
Like
yeah, so like there's a lot of wells that are, say, 2,000 meters deep, and then you're going to go, say it's a blue sky formation, for example, that gets depleted, and then you go uphole to a shallower formation that might be Viking or Ostracod or something else, right?
Well, this isn't Montney, this isn't Duvernay. This is like east.
It's typically what's been developed in the basin over
Bull Island. Right. It's like all this stuff since the 1950s.
Yeah.
So would you? How many wells do you think this would have to be? Almost
thousands.
2/3 like of the well inventory in Alberta, I would think.
It's hard because I don't know how many CDM wells are there, which would be
the coal that can't be measured.
Tens of thousands.
Little straws.
Yeah, short little straws down. But it would apply to a lot of wells. Of course, it wouldn't apply to like SAGD wells or anything like that.
Because those are kind of single zone, right?
Yeah.
Like you're drilling down into and those well pairs, and then the deeper stuff. I don't even think they really bother much with the shallow, do they?
The really deeper stuff?
Yeah, if you're doing these Duvernay and Montney wells, like
if you're drilling those big horizontals, you are going through those zones.
Yeah,
but you're not going and spending $7, $8, $10 million on a well and going, hey, hopefully I'm going to get
a blue sky,
a blue sky, or a Viking 20 MCF a day producer, which is like 3 barrels, $100 a day. Well, the gas prices today, like 100 MCF is like. Well, it could be 20 MCF.
You might be able to run your pump off it, right?
Yeah. You'll pay the landowners and
pay the landowner, right? Yeah. Burger and fries.
Yeah. That's literally about it.
Yeah. So are you affected by this at all? Like, have you been getting these notices?
Everyone
stuff that you're hearing.
Everyone is. Honestly, I haven't seen that the notice. I know it's there.
They were in the mail.
Yeah. But virtually every producer will be impacted by this. I mean, I know fortunately for us, our field is pretty much as steady as she goes, flat producer, and we've got optimization potential, and that's really the difference, between our kind of a company and a big tourmaline or a Duvernay, right? Because we exist in different sort of strata where we're squeezing more of the barrels out of the ground,
kind of on the food chain, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, what do you think the effect this is going to have for the, because there's a lot of talk with the mature well strategy and, and like Premier Smith was even musing about forming her own oil company to, produce these wells to use the production revenue to abandon them, right? Like, is now all of a sudden is she going to be like the proud owner of 100,000 60 MCF a day?
Well, I mean, my first impression is because this could bring forward a lot of the abandonment obligations,
right?
You've got to now factor that into your corporate budgets and that, and you may see some initial sort of stimulus period here where you're seeing some uphole perforators. So maybe the lobbyists for the perforating companies got a big win.
Do they have it? Is there a perforating association?
I don't know, honestly, but maybe the CAOEC is advocated. But that being said, I think practically speaking, though, it would end up bringing forward a lot of those abandonment obligations. And sadly, I think we'll end up leaving a bunch of resources in the ground to the detriment of Albertans.
I was just going to ask you, like, would it be enough for some companies maybe just to walk away? And so, like these good people that were walking away from the houses when the mortgages go underwater?
Well, I don't know. That's pretty speculative.
But you know what I mean? Like, so now all of a sudden your abandonment liabilities kind of outweigh any returns that you thought that you might have gotten in the past. Like, and then how do you sell this stuff, right?
Yeah, good luck selling it.
Good luck selling your old Ford truck that needs to do with coming these your tires.
Well, like practically speaking, there's in the industry, in your portfolio of all of the wells that you've got good producers, you've got worse producers.
Try to package them up.
Yeah, and so they package them up, and as you get towards the end of life, companies go, okay, so do I need to factor in that I'm going to have to be abandoning these wells within a couple of years, or do I factor in that I will have to be abandoning them much later down the road, offset by the uphole production that we can see?
Or
so
like amortization almost.
Exactly. So it'll get much harder to sell those more mature assets. It would be
so you've kind of had dual duty because you're kind of a little bit involved in the political side as well as the business side.
Not for 8 years, and I don't want to be in it anymore.
Okay. No, I was just going to say, like, would you have any insight, like, into how these discussions go? Like, how would they, like, why would they come up with something like this, and why would they do it now? Is there political reason, or obviously the economics are a little bit challenging? You don't have to answer.
Okay, I'll just say this one little story. Some people who will see me will see like, oh, he must be political animal and the whole bit. But I can truthfully tell one of the reasons why I actually got involved in politics to start with is go and meet your MLA. And when you consider that these MLAs as a collection are managing now a $70 billion budget and the province, and you're talking about healthcare and education and the economy and everything in this province.
Right.
You quickly become scared. And you go, I've got to get involved in trying to help do my bit to guide the province in a new direction. So, not everyone is a subject matter expert. I run a little oil company. I don't consider myself a subject matter expert on this. So when you are assistant restaurant manager or whatever you were doing before, and now this is put in front of you, I understand, like, from a bureaucracy standpoint or from an AER standpoint, that maybe it makes some bureaucratic sense, but from a practical industry perspective, it doesn't.
Okay.
So
no, fair enough. I think I heard somebody say that once. It's something that people have a lot of interest in, but they're not very interested in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Too much of this world is just headlines and one little blurb, and it's And mostly it's National Enquirer types of headlines now, and that's the depth of our thinking, unfortunately. But clickbaits, and unfortunately, everything is much more complex and gray than anything that we have. And that's where I think some of this shallow rights reversion, it's sort of disregards some of the business practicalities and implications coming through. And it's not something that happens today. It's not like, oh, your royalties are doubled today, but over time and in many ways, it's like, and ultimately it could well mean that more wells fall into the orphan well fund, which then falls on all of us taxpayers. And that's not anything that the industry wants to see happen either.
Sure.
So, yeah.
A lot of food for thought there.
A lot of food for thought. It's much more complex than just.
And here I thought.
Hell yeah, this is simple.
And here I thought it was going to be boring.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Shaun.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot, Shaun.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. Yeah. Cheers. Hi, we're here with Nick Samain, Senior VP of DMG Events, and we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming. Is it the Global Energy Show now? GES?
Global Energy Show Canada.
Oh my God, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and better, as always.
Thanks for having me, Shaun.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. Yeah, we were talking a little bit before. So Western Standard, we're going to be doing some things with you guys in terms of some of the coverage and some of the events, and so we just thought it would be worthwhile having a little bit of an update on where things sit with less than a month to go. Most people in Calgary know that the oil show is probably what they're familiar with is like almost the run up to the Stampede and the big summer event season and the major kickoff, right?
Yeah, I mean, what a great tradition here in Calgary since its inception in the 60s, and we're okay with people still referring it to the oil show. Shaun,
that's how I knew it when I came to town,
and that's okay. And it is the Global Energy Show Canada, and I think that does reflect the different names actually that the show has had, from Global Petroleum Show to the National Petroleum Show and other iterations. Yeah, Intercan is as the industry's changing and continues to evolve and grow in some exciting ways. And I think this year's event really, in 2025, there's so much at play in the event, both from a challenges and an opportunity.
For sure, absolutely. Well, we just had the appointment of the cabinet this morning. Yes, what I've been going on all day.
More news and more people wanting to talk about energy. I think that's one of the things. I mean, I think that's been happening the last several months or last couple of years, but even more so than ever, your average Canadian coast to coast is tuning into what energy means, and I think more are starting to see, that what its impact as from Canada's top export or other reasons that make news. And that's really helped the Global Energy Show Canada this year really continue to expand its not just its prominence within the industry as Canada's national energy event, certainly the largest. It was attracting close to 30,000 people this year. But we've seen a big spike in our registrations this year, certainly compared to 2024. So something has changed. And you mentioned, of course, the opportunity to work with you and the great folks here at Western Standard. We're thrilled to have you down on the show and doing some interviews and really just being part of that activation of getting all of the challenges and the debates. I mean, look, a good conference isn't about everybody on stage agreeing on what's right. And with the roster of speakers, we haven't had this level and this many speakers for the conference, a roster like this, and certainly more than a decade, if ever, in the show's history. It's just really tremendous. And then adding in all the issues in and around what's going on in Canada, but internationally, we've got a record number of international pavilions and international delegates coming right here into Alberta, here in Calgary.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were talking, and you said, I think in the election, energy definitely became more of the national conversation, whereas maybe before this was kind of seen as a trade show. Now we're actually talking about some of these policies and issues. And we were speaking just even before we came in here, like maybe the possibility that the prime minister might even show up.
Well, no comment. Isn't that what we say sometimes? But yes, certainly we do welcome debates on energy from a national level, and
It
certainly
would be a good, if you're watching out there, anybody in the prime minister's camp, it would be a very good opportunity, I think, for him to come and actually, address some of these issues and air it out with people who actually care.
There's no question that that the viewpoint we've as you say, just gone through an election. We just this morning had a new cabinet elected and a new leader. The energy sector will all be in one place. 30,000 strong, with all major, many of the major CEOs, ministers from different provinces across Canada, the United States, and internationally from South America, contingents from Europe and from Asia, all here at the events. Now, so there's the theme around is the conversation, and the idea around the show is that when you bring that many decision makers together and come up on stage, to your point about inviting the new prime minister or others, it is an opportunity and a place to be able to get those views out on the table. As many know, we have Peter Mansbridge joining us as the host of the conference, and Peter's really there to help enable that conversation to come through. So at the end of the 3 days, that's really our mission with this year's event, is to help along that conversation and, along those two macro themes, which are really driving the big growth, we think, on the trade show and with the registrations, is in and around the opportunity of expanding and building more energy domestic infrastructure here in Canada.
Yep.
And alongside of that, there's a tremendous amount of talk and activity at the show this year around diversifying customers for Canada's energy around the world. And with all of those ingredients in place, with a strong international contingent, the big speakers, there's really a huge opportunity for the 2025 edition of the Global Energy Show Canada to make a big difference and help air out maybe a lot of those conversations and get them out in the open.
I liked what you were saying earlier too, like, because we've been to the shows in Houston and I've been Saudi Arabia, you've been Saudi, but how it's taking the policymakers and combining it with, the expo of all the people who actually do the work and actually work in the field and actually put this stuff into the ground.
It's so important. And yes, I know, Shaun, because I see you around the conference circuit, and we do get around. And yes, it's really important that we do tend to fixate a lot on that executive conference and some of the things we talked about and those big issues, which are vitally important to come out of this. But yes, the Global Energy Show Canada is unique in that it's got that massive trade show chocked full of companies that are, whether it's the latest in technology, equipment, services. These are the companies and the men and women and the tens of thousands of them that make the energy sector work, that have a tremendous amount of influence on what that direction looks like.
Sure.
And they'll be there. And so there's a really cool top to bottom connectivity, I'll say, right down to your average Canadian or not so average Canadian that's interested in energy, or if you're a young person or a student, or maybe you're an early career professional that's just entered the energy sector or wanting to, up until 2 weeks before the show, your entry to the trade show, provided that you pre-register in advance, you are able to attend. We really believe in the event being accessible, and there's so much programming. We've got, the executive conference we just talked about, but the influencers conference, energy influencers conference, happening on the show floor. Wait till you see this in action, Shaun. We've got a tremendous center court, and we've got 3 theaters focused on 3 of the most important categories that our committee of 50 strong have designed, curated in AI, in clean, in new energy and oil and gas. 3 theaters happening. So you've got another conference happening on the trade show floor that's going to have thousands of delegates, let alone some of the number of networking events that are taking place in and around the show as well.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say, like, these people are your neighbors. You know, a lot of them, they own these businesses. They're entrepreneurs or small business owners, and they're, you know, there's a whole community here in downtown Calgary. You know, people, non-C-suite executive people that are actively involved in it as well, right?
Yeah.
So we were also talking, like, in the past, it's been kind of a big outdoor event. You've got big iron outside, and now we've got Cowboy stage. We're going to have music, beer tent, and pancake breakfasts, and you know, there's a real social element to this as well, right?
Well, there certainly is, and I think that back to, you know, your general public has an inherent interest in energy, and the show has a responsibility to tell that story outwards. So yeah, we really want to thank the great city of Calgary and all of those men and women across a myriad of thousands of companies that go to work every day. So we're kicking the show off on Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. There's a pancake breakfast that's open to the city of Calgary. Whether you're planning to attend the show or not, we certainly would love you to come and attend and visit the exhibit.
Put on your kickers and
come down, start with the pancake. So that starts from 7 to 9 early that morning. And yes, throughout the day we're thrilled to be partnering with our friends at Cowboys again for this year, where we've got a music stage. Picture a lovely beverage and beer garden happening, some smoky. It's really a core to this event, and several outdoor exhibits of big equipment, the kind of things that we can't quite fit in the exhibition floor. So it's a really cool atmosphere that you're able to go inside and outside throughout the 3 days of the event. And the show this year, think we got the outdoor, you've got 3, 4, 5 halls full of exhibits. You certainly, if you pencil off the 3 days, you're able to do that. There's networking events happening every night. There's dinners happening every night. There's loads of networking, lots of places to sit for you to plug in if you need to take some meetings. We encourage, if you're planning to come down the show, mark it off in your calendar and get your business done from down at the show.
Sure,
it can be a really productive 3 days. Yeah.
So the question that I really want to ask that's on the minds of all the Western Standard viewers is, what about the rodeo, Nick? Are you guys bringing back the rodeo? You had Cirque du Soleil last year.
Yeah, I mean, so the rodeo, and thanks for that question, because I do get asked that a lot. And we've got some wonderful partners that we talk with each year that are keen to put on the rodeo. And it is such a hit, both with whether it's young people or people bringing their families too that are coming to the show, internationals that are coming here that have never seen anything like that might not be able to come back to our great city again to see the actual stampede. So we didn't make it into the program this year. Here's my diplomatic answer. But we are working with our executive committee, who is our steering committee on the show, to put that on the boil for next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Good question.
Had to ask. Well, beers and, cowboys.
That's right.
Yeah, beers and cowgirls and pancakes. I mean, you really can't go wrong. And also, like you said, a lot of good discussion, government officials, high level Alberta government for sure.
Yes.
We had a couple senior federal cabinet ministers last year, but I think it got a little mixed up with the Global World Petroleum Conference, right? Congress. So this year it's just all about us.
Yeah, this year the number of not just the number, but the quality of ministers and representation from across Canada that's coming to the show is the best we've ever had. I can't comment yet, of course, from the federal ministerial side, as we know, with it being where we are.
Well, it's still
and just the tremendous support and leadership from here in Alberta, with the government of Alberta enabling us to really make that connectivity. We work with the government of Alberta on outreach to really delegates from countries, whether that's from Asia, whether that's from Europe, whether that's from South America, to really bring those folks here. And why are they coming here? It's because they want to do business, whether that's investment, whether that's becoming customers of Canadian energy. ventures, joy. We all remember, before the downturn a decade ago, there was lots of money and lots of investment coming in here. That's one of the main purposes that our organization and putting the show on is here to serve, is to really create an attraction that's on a global scale to bring more of those people here so more business can get done. And again, you back to the men and women that are owning all of the many, many thousands of small businesses and medium-sized businesses. That's what the show is trying to do, is really follow, is to steer the programming, to follow the money, to tilt the trade show and bring in buyers to continue to regrow the sector.
Excellent. And for us, lots of headlines, because we got a lot of headlines out of it last year. And like you said, I've been looking at the program and I've been fairly impressed. Like in all the years that I've been in this city, and I've been to pretty much every single one of them since 1999, and this one looks like it's going to be one of the best.
Well, and not to be a good show guy, but there's still more announcements to come. I wish I could, perhaps in our next time that we catch up together, Shaun. But there's some more major speaker announcements to come between now and the event. We've got more major sponsor announcements to come, and other special events that are coming together. This year is going to be a show like no other. And as I said, whether people want to attend just the trade show or come to the executive conference, the influencer conference, there's a number of options that you can get right through just Googling Global Energy Show Canada and right on the website. And our team of 30 full-time people here in Calgary, in our offices here, are happy to help.
I was just going to say, is it dmg.com?
It's globalenergyshow.com.
Globalenergyshow.com.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me,
Looking
Shaun.
forward to it. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Pleasure as always. Thanks.